A wimpy con man learns advanced karate before heading to prison, determined to take on the toughest bullies inside. Will he conquer them all? Let's find out. Stan Minton is a wealthy real estate agent living in LA with his beautiful wife Mindy. Life seems perfect, but Stan has a dirty secret. He cheats his clients out of small amounts, which over time have added up to a fortune. One day his actions catch up to him and he is arrested for first-degree fraud. Found guilty, he faces a minimum of 3 years in prison. Desperate to avoid prison, Stan begs his lawyer to bribe the judge.
I got it. We bribed the judge.
The lawyer tries, but the verdict remains unchanged. The only thing Stan manages to secure is a 6-month delay by faking a charity event. After the hearing, Stan's lawyer suggests he flee to Brazil, but his assets are frozen, leaving him stuck. Now he must face the next few months in dread of what's coming. In a panic, Stan starts rushing through everything in life. During a date with Mindy, she suggests they have a child so she won't be alone while he's gone. Stan scoffs at the idea, arguing they'd have to give the baby up for adoption once he's out. His dismissive attitude creates tension, and Mindy storms off. Later, at a bar, Stan meets a man with a prison tattoo and offers him $100 for advice about prison life. The man explains that prison guards don't care about inmate violence. So long as no one escapes, prisoners can kill each other without interference. He warns Stan that he'll likely become a target for sexual violence. Stan, realizing he's weak and submissive, panics. The man suggests Stan get intimidating tattoos, but Stan shows him his tattoo of his mother, which clearly won't help. The man then advises Stan to join one of the prison gangs, which are divided by race. However, Stan doesn't fit into any of those groups. As a last resort, the man suggests he kill someone to gain respect. The next morning, Stan wakes up with a hangover, hoping it was all a bad dream. His dread intensifies when Mindy reminds him that he's still going to prison. Here's to uplift Stan. She highlights his resilience, telling him that he always finds a way. Inspired, Stan vows to transform himself into an alpha within 6 months. Starting immediately, he dedicates himself to daily exercise and even gets a tattoo on his rear to make it less appealing. Seeking to toughen up, he joins a karate class but quickly grows impatient with the basic lessons. Frustrated, he challenges the instructor and ends up fighting a student, which results in him being kicked out. This is when he encounters an old man known as the Master. The Master impresses Stan by effortlessly punching a hole in a nearby wall. Desperate to learn self-defense before his impending prison sentence, Stan invites the mysterious man to train him at home. The Master moves in with Stan and his wife, Mindy. On the first day of training, Stan is rudely awakened at 5 a.m., startled as animal blood drips on his face. The Master then instructs Mindy to blend a bizarre smoothie made of ox pancreas and horse tongues for Stan to drink. The training methods are intense and unconventional. Some days, the Master hits Stan with a flaming stick, while on others, he hangs Stan by his skin to test his endurance. Stan is also forced to eat an assortment of strange foods, including scorpions and snakes. Meanwhile, Mindy grows increasingly frustrated, especially with the Master constantly smoking in the house. She finally asks Stan to kick him out. That night, in a twisted attempt to make her understand his fear, Stan stages a mock break-in, making her think she's about to be assaulted. When the charade ends, Mindy, shaken, decides she's had enough and leaves him, vowing never to return. The Master is unbothered by her departure, delighted that her absence will allow for more rigorous training. For the next 5 months, Stan pushes himself to the limit, with no rest and grueling exercises. By the end, Stan surprises the Master by defeating him in combat. His final test, returning to the karate dojo where he was once thrown out. This time, he easily defeats the teacher, marking the completion of his training. Now fully prepared, Stan is ready to face whatever comes next. The Master and Stan's lawyer drive him to court, where he awaits his prison sentence. Though Mindy hasn't spoken to him, she watches him from afar, parked discreetly in her car. Stan enters the courthouse and is soon transported to prison. On the bus ride, a fellow inmate makes an inappropriate move, but Stan swiftly puts him in his place. Upon arrival, the prisoners are greeted by Warden Gask, who cheerfully warns them not to bother the guards, but notes they're free to do what they like to each other. During the intake process, Stan and the other new inmates are ordered to strip for a cavity search. The guards are shocked and horrified when they see Stan's tattooed and modified behind. Afterward, Stan is assigned a cell and meets his cellmate, Larry. Later, Larry fills him in on the prison's internal dynamics, revealing that the guards operate like a gang, running the place with their own set of rules. Stan is thrown into a chaotic prison filled with various gangs. The first group he encounters is a gang of black men, followed by a group of Mexican thugs, a third group of Nazis, and finally, a bunch of hardcore racists. But the real danger comes from Big Raymond, the most feared sexual predator in the block. Raymond is terrorizing a new inmate when Stan confidently steps in and challenges him in front of everyone. The fight is short-lived, as Stan uses self-defense techniques he learned from his master, effortlessly taking Raymond down. The prison crowd is stunned by his skills. Seeing an opportunity, Patterson, the leader of the Nazi group, approaches Stan and tries to recruit him into their crew. Stan isn't interested. Instead, he takes Patterson down too, showing no hesitation. Shortly after, the African-American gang confronts Stan, furious that he dared to fight Big Raymond. Stan tries to defuse the situation, even claiming he's also black, but the gang leader isn't convinced and orders his men to attack. A full-on brawl erupts, but Stan handles them with ease, using the techniques he mastered. The guards watch, entertained by the chaos, as Stan defeats the attackers without breaking a sweat. After the fight, the entire prison is in awe of Stan's combat prowess. He walks through the prison halls like a king, with inmates stepping aside, respecting his dominance. His reputation spreads, and soon, the inmates begin calling him Big Stan. A young inmate named Robbie, who was saved from Raymond earlier, approaches Stan to thank him. But Stan dismisses him coldly, claiming he fought only for himself, not for anyone else. Later, Stan is summoned by Warden Gask. In a private meeting, Gask reveals that he manipulated events to ensure Stan ended up in this prison. The warden has a secret plan to seize the prison property and turn it into a high-end estate. Knowing Stan's background as a realtor, Gask asks for his help in identifying any legal flaws in the documents. In exchange, he promises to cut Stan's sentence to just 1 year. Intrigued by the offer, Stan agrees to help, but questions how Gask plans to pull off such a bold move. The warden keeps his cards close to his chest, refusing to reveal the details for now. Meanwhile, the gangs, enraged by their defeats, unite in a rare truce, plotting to take down Stan. One day, while Stan is showering, Patterson sneaks up on him, wielding a shiv made from a melted toothbrush and a razor blade. But Stan, always prepared, counters with his homemade nunchaku, soap bars tied together with a shoelace. He swiftly disarms Patterson. Stan is struggling with missing his wife deeply, and his thoughts constantly drift to her. Anxious about their future, he contacts his lawyer to ask if she sent him the divorce papers. To his relief, she hasn't filed anything yet, offering him a glimmer of hope. Determined to focus, Stan begins working on Warden Gask's project. During the process, he's introduced to Dang. Stan overhears their conversation about a devious plan. They intend to incite chaos among the inmates, leading to violent clashes where guards will shoot some prisoners. Their goal is to make the prison seem unmanageable, forcing the Board of Governors to shut it down. Despite knowing the inmates want him dead, Stan feels a strong sense of duty to stop the plan and protect them. The next day, he takes the initiative, calling a prison-wide meeting to establish some order. He starts by getting rid of all their violent video games and movies, declaring them a bad influence on everyone. Stan then lays down an important rule: sexual assault will no longer be tolerated. Anyone caught committing it will have to answer to him personally. When the men grumble, he encourages them to explore consensual relationships instead. Though the concept is new and strange to them, they reluctantly agree to give it a shot. At the next lunch break, Robbie and a group of men approach Stan's table, thanking him for implementing the no-assault rule. Stan brushes it off, claiming it's just a way to assert his control, but Robbie sees through his tough exterior, knowing Stan genuinely cares about their well-being. Meanwhile, at another table, Big Raymond, now in a happy relationship with his new boyfriend, is seen enjoying a meal peacefully. Thanks to Stan's intervention, even Raymond has turned a new leaf. A few days later, Stan receives a letter from his wife, Mindy. After apologizing to her in a previous letter for his past mistakes, she now wants to meet with him, sparking hope for reconciliation. In the days that follow, whenever disputes arise among the inmates, they come to Stan to mediate. Slowly, the tension in the prison dissolves, and the inmates begin to appreciate each other's company, forming a more peaceful environment. One day, Stan is visited by his wife, Mindy, and during their emotional reunion, they make love. While this is happening, Warden Gask learns about Stan's success in diffusing conflicts among the inmates. Furious, Gask feels that Stan's actions are ruining his scheme to sabotage the prison. Stan is abruptly dragged away from his special time with Mindy and brought before Gask. The warden accuses him of undermining his plan and threatens that if Stan doesn't start following orders, he'll have Dang kill him. Stan is shaken by the threat. The next day, Stan calls his lawyer for advice. The lawyer warns him to comply, pointing out that Gask is a powerful man who can make his life miserable. After the call, Stan reluctantly tells the inmates that their problems are no longer his concern and that they can return to their old ways. Tension rises, and soon, fights start breaking out again. At lunch, Robbie approaches Stan for guidance, but Stan cruelly throws Robbie's plate to the ground and tells him to leave. Even Stan's loyal friend, Larry, is disheartened. As Larry starts to walk away, Stan stops him and quietly warns him to avoid the metal fence at noon. Larry realizes Stan is being coerced and doesn't actually want things to go back to chaos. He shares this with the other inmates, and they secretly begin planning something of their own. Meanwhile, Gask arranges a meeting between Stan and the parole board to discuss his early release. While Stan is stuck in the meeting, Gask leads the board of governors on a tour of the prison, with plans to spark violence near the fence at noon. As tensions rise, Gask's real plan is to stage a deadly incident during the inmates' noon conflicts, intending to show the board that the prison is uncontrollable and justify shutting it down. In the meeting, Stan acts unruly and hostile, hoping to be dismissed from the room. His ploy works, allowing him to rush to warn the inmates to stay away from the fence. But before he can get far, Dang confronts him, revealing that he too has been trained by the same master. The two engage in an intense fight, with Dang initially proving more skilled. However, Stan manages to outsmart him and knocks Dang out, finally gaining the upper hand. By this time, the inmates have gathered in the yard, with guards preparing to shoot as ordered. But instead of fighting, the inmates surprise everyone by breaking into a choreographed dance routine to a lively Mexican song. The guards are caught off guard, unsure of how to react. Frustrated and enraged, Gask grabs a gun and begins firing wildly into the air, desperate to regain control. The Board of Governors witnesses this reckless act and is ready to take immediate action against him. Gask, now cornered and desperate, tries to kill Stan, but just in time, Mindy arrives and saves Stan. The scene then jumps to 3 years later. Stan has finally served his time and is ready to leave the prison. His fellow inmates gather to say their goodbyes. Even Patterson, the once feared Nazi leader, has a tattoo of Stan's face proudly inked on his belly, a symbol of the respect Stan earned in the prison. As Stan walks free, he is greeted by Mindy, the master, and their 3-year-old daughter, who has been waiting for him. Together, they head home, ready to start their new life.